Thank you everyone for joining the webinar session today. In today's session, we are going to talk about how to track your sales, purchases and expenses. So let's see the first set of reports available under sales category. The sales section has sales by customer, sales by item, sales return history, sales by salesperson and packing history. So let's talk first about the sales by customer, what exactly this report is and how this can be useful to us. So the sales by customer report provides you with the consolidated sales for each customer. Now you might be thinking, why do we need this report? In this report, you can see the total sales. You can see here, you can see the total sales for a specific period. As per the desired dates, you can filter the dates from this option. It says this here, and here we can choose the option. Like if we want to view the report for this financial year, we can select this and click run report. You can identify your frequent customers and plan for special discounts. So as the name says, sales by customer, the system will list all the sales done for all the customers. So you can see under sales column, the system is showing up the value. That means to this customer, we have done this much of sales. If you would like to filter the sales based on the top purchaser and the least purchasers, you can just click on this sales column over here. So what it does is it will filter the system will sort based on the values. So it will show who is the highest purchaser and who is the lowest purchaser. So with these details, you can plan the discounts for the top buyers and encourage your customers to buy more. So here we can see we have invoice count, sales and sales with tax. These are the default columns which are available in this report. So you can customize this report using the more customization option from here, and we have a shortcut key as well. There is a small window icon. If you just click on it, the additional customization based on your business requirement will come up here. So you can customize the report and add new columns which are relevant to your requirement. I will add a few fields and then I'll just run the report. So let's say I would like to see the sales without discount. I want to see the journal entries. I wanted to know the credit note counts created. So I'll choose these options and then I click on run report. Okay, so all the additional information which I have selected will be displayed here. So you can see the journal count is 1, the credit note is 0. So based on this, you'll be able to analyze the data. You can even, if you want to filter more, you can even click on the values and you will get the in-depth details of it. Now let's see some additional filters which are available. You can filter the report based on invoice, credit note and journals. So here you can see these entities option. So here we have multiple filters available. Let's see, I just wanted to see the invoices alone. So I'll choose the option as invoices and then I'll click on run report. So system will display only the invoice transaction details for all the customers. You can even filter the journal entries which are created for the customer. So the contacts which are associated under journals while creating them. Let me show you a live example. So under accountant, we have a manual journal option. So while creating any journal, we will have an option to associate a contact. So if the journal is associated with a specific contact, in this case, you can see the customer name is Abhinaya Tilkar. So I have associated her and then I have saved it. So based on this contact preference, my particular report will display that particular data. So if I filter based on journal alone, you can see the transactions which are associated with them. So Abhinaya and employee is associated with those transactions. Let's see some additional customizations which are available under this particular report. Now let's say you would like to compare this particular data. We have, let me run it for this financial year. So let's say you are having a total sales of 20,39,141. Let's say you would like to, most of the time customer, what they will do is they'll compare this particular sales value with their P&L sales, profit and loss report sales. So most of the time this value matches up, but in case it doesn't, then the possible reasons would be amounts which are taken while creating these transactions will not match up. So sales by customer report is basically based on the transactions, and the profit and loss report, which you can see under report section, this will be completely based on the accounts what we have taken. So let's say in an invoice, I will have an option to associate a sales account, or if you would like to associate any other account other than sales, then I would choose that. So if I do that, then the P&L with the sales by customer report will not match up. So that is one of the reason. Okay. Moving ahead, we have another report, that is sales by item. So sales by item report. Before we go into further, let me tell you that this report will only display the data when the item is added under items module. So you have an item modules under Zoho Books. When you create a new item, you will have an option to select the item type as goods or service. So if I have added the items as a goods or service, then only the details will be listed under that sales by item report. Let's consider if I'm creating an invoice. Okay, and at the time of creation of invoice, instead of selecting the item which are being displayed in this drop down list which are added under item module, if I'm typing the item name manually, let's say item A, and then I'm pressing the enter. So what system does is this particular item will be treated as a service and a description item, and if I save this invoice, this data will not come up under sales by item report. So the point here is the transactions which are created with the item in the transaction level will be only displayed here. Items which are added as a description will not be displayed here. Okay, so why do we need the sales by item report? So in your organization, you would be having items which you are selling to your customers on a daily basis. Now let's say at a specific point of time, if you'd like to see the sale details based on items, it can be your service, it can be your goods. Then this report will help you identifying these details. Okay, so as you can see, this sales by item report captured details such as the best selling product and product which needs more marketing for sales boost up. The columns which are available under this report is it shows the total items which are available, the total quantities which we have sold, and as to what amount we have sold it, and the average price. Average price is nothing but the amount divided by the quantity sold. So we can even sort this based on the lowest and the highest selling product. So if you just click on the quantity sold, the system will by default filter based on the lowest to highest selling. So as you can see, these the front items on the screen, you can see the mobile inventory item to test serial number, all the quantity sold as one. So by seeing this, I can see that these are the least selling product for this particular period. And so you can sort the details based on quantity, amount, and the average price. When you drill down the report, you can view the customer details to whom the item was sold to. So let's say if I click on any of the value, okay, then the system will tell you the customer name, to which customer I have sold and how many quantities I have sold it. We also have an option to add the additional fields such as amount without tax. We can add it from here. Amount without tax, the amount without discount, and any other field that is required as per your business requirement. And when after selecting this, I can run the filter and get the appropriate data. You would like to see the sales by item report based on multiple branches as per my desired need. So what you will have to do, you can just click on more customization under general category. Here we have an option called advanced filter. So when I click on add filter, I will have an option to filter based on branch. So I'll select the option as branch name, second field is in, and the third option is the branches which are available. So let's say I would like to see the data for Sikkim branch. I would choose the branch name as Sikkim and then run the report. Okay, so as you can see, for this particular Sikkim branch, this is the item which I have sold it, and this is the number of quantities and the amount which I have sold it. You can even do more customization if you'd like to compare this particular report. Now I would like to see my previous month cost, selling price for a specific item and this month selling price for a particular item. So to achieve that, again I'll go to more customization. We have an option called compare with. So here we can choose the appropriate option if you'd like to get the data for previous year, or I want to filter it based on previous periods. So let's go with previous periods for now. And I'll choose the number of period for which I would like to see the data. I'll choose the date range as this month. The comparison will happen based on months, and then I run the reports. So as you can see, when I have run the report, the system shows the July 23, August 23, and September 23, since I have selected the 3 months data. So it will show what was the selling price for these particular items, what was the average price, and what is the amount without tax and amount with tax. So by this way, you can do the additional comparison. You can even export this report in the appropriate formats. as desired. So we have multiple options for exporting the data. We have PDF, we have XLS, we have CSV format. So while exporting it, we'll have additional customizations. Like if this information you feel that it is a confidential, you can go with this option that I want to protect this file with a password. So using that option, what you will have is you can enter any specific password and then export the data. So the exported file will be password protected. You can go with the export this report based on my current view. What this option does is, so let's say I have done multiple customization in this report. I have chosen the additional columns, average price, amount without tax and without discount. So these are the additional customization which I have done. And based on that, I have generated this report. So the front page, what you can see in the UI, if you would like to export as it is, you can go with this particular option that says export my current view. We have additional options over here. So if you would like to, in the exported file, if you want any specific columns to be not displayed, or you would like to go with those options, so you can simply select these values and then you can click on export. Moving ahead, let's talk about sales return history. So before we understand more about this report, I would like to inform you that this report is only available for users who are subscribed to the paid plan of Zoho Inventory or paid plan of Zoho Books. Or you should be under Elite and Ultimate plan of Zoho Books if you're not using Zoho Inventory. So then only this report will be visible to you. So once you are in the appropriate plan, you will have to enable one option just to get this reports. You can go to settings. You can go to preferences. Under general, we'll have an option called Zoho Inventory add-ons. So you need to select this option and then click on save. Once this option is saved, these appropriate reports will be available, specifically the sales return history and packaging history, what you can see it here. So these two reports will only be available if those option is available. So now let's talk more about the sales return history. So sales return history, how does a shipment happens in a traditional way? A sales order is created, a shipment happens, a product return, a credit note is created, a receipt is recorded, and then the sales return is recorded. So when a sale return is created, it will capture all the details such as the sales order number and as on which date the sales return happened, right? So this report will give you as on the which date the sales order was created, the customer name, the total amount of invoice, and the sales return, when was the sales return happened against that particular sales order. So you need to focus that this particular report is completely based on the sales order return that are happening. So here we can see the status of the sales return that has happened, what is the status of it, whether it's a received or whether it's a refunded, and the total amount refunded against that sales return. So the advantages of this particular report is you will have a clear visibility into returns. So it provides a clear and organized view of all the sales return or product refund processed by your business. This visibility is crucial for tracking and managing returned items effectively. The another advantage is it improves your customer experience. So by analyzing the sales return history, you can identify recurring issues or customer complaints. Addressing these issues can lead to improvements in your product, services, or customer support, ultimately enhancing the customer experience. And then let's talk about the refund status. So refund processing, this report streamlines the process of issuing refunds to the customer. It helps you track refund amounts and ensures that customers receive their refunds promptly and accurately. Right, so you can filter the data based on the appropriate period as desired. So you can run the report and the data will be captured. Let's move on to the next report. We have sales by salesperson. So in your organization, you might be doing your sales through various means like online selling, retail shop, and through salesperson. We will focus on salesperson for now. Who are salesperson? They are individuals who is responsible for selling products and services on behalf of a company, right? So with this report, you will be able to track and analyze the sales performance on an individual salesperson basis. It consolidates the transactions based on salesperson associated in the transaction. Now, before we get into this report, now let's understand how to enable this option and associate the salesperson to the transactions. So we have to go to settings. We will go to preferences. Okay, under general we will have an option. If you just scroll down a bit, you will see an option that says I want to add a salesperson field. So you select this option and you save it. Now while creating any transaction, let's say if you are creating an invoice and the invoice you would like to associate a salesperson to it. So at the time of creation of any transaction, you'll get a field like this, salesperson. So here you can add any salesperson, and this is, if there are already added salesperson, you can just simply select them. If you want to add a new salesperson, you can click on manage salesperson, click new salesperson, enter the name of the salesperson and their email ID. That's all. Since the salesperson is already exist, it is throwing this error. So we will add it, and once it is created, based on the transactions associated with those salesperson, the report will be generated. Okay. Now let's say what information it captures. So this particular report captures the revenue earned by each salesperson and use it. You can very well use it to plan the commissions, and you can provide them incentive based on the sales that they have done. Please be noted that all the transactions which you are created should not be in the draft status. If any transaction it is in the draft status, will not be included in these reports. So you again you can do the additional customizations. You can see that if I filter for this here, all the salesperson count is shown, like the which salesperson have done more sales. The others have done 123, Ishwarya have done 1, Pushpa has done 4. Now there is one more point here. The name says others, right? So what does this other means? Others is nothing but if you have created any transactions without associating a salesperson. Like if you're creating an invoice and if you have not associated a salesperson name, then those will be by default tracked under others category. So if you just click on any of the values, it will show you all the transactions created under that category, like others. So let me show you a live example. So as you can see, this invoice is created. If I edit this invoice, I can see that a salesperson name would not be associated. That is why you can see it here. Salesperson name is not selected. That is why it is considered as others. You can also do a comparison if you would like to, that which salesperson have done more sales based on the sorting here. So we can click on total sales over here, and it will show the lowest selling salesperson, that is Aishwarya have done only 1000 rupees of total sales for this financial year, and others you can see 520 and Pushpa have done 14. So the highest selling salesperson is Pushpa here. So by seeing this information, you can plan their incentives and get an idea. Moving ahead, we have another report, that is packing history. Again, this report is only available for the customers who are subscribed under Elite or Ultimate plan, like I have said earlier, or if you are in the paid plan of Zoho Books or Zoho Inventory, then this report will be visible to you. The packaging history is nothing but it will give you a tracking information if a package is created against a sales order. Let me show you a live example. So when you go to sales section, you have sales orders. Here you can see that sales orders are created. If I click on any of the sales order, I will have an option called packages. Right, so first I pack the item. Okay, I enter the package name, then the date, the item description will be listed here, and then I can save it. Okay, a package is created. Now I will have to ship these items. I click on the ship option, I choose the option that says manually. Okay, I enter the shipment number, shipment date, and the carrier, like whichever carrier I am shipping the product through. So let me select Blue Dart. You can even add any of your as per your desired choice, and then enter the tracking information. Save it. Okay, so once this is done, you will be able to see the packaging details under this packaging history report. So if I select this here, you can see the packages which is created today, package 1, 2, 3. If you click on it, it will show you in-depth data as on which against which sales order this was created. We have more customizations available as well in this particular report. So let's say if I click on customize report, I can filter this report based on the status of the packages, whether it's shipped, whether it's delivered, whether it's not shipped, or if I want to see all. So let's see only the shipped products. For now, you can just click report and system will show what are the packages which are shipped. right? So these are the additional customization that you can choose based on your appropriate requirements. So this brings to an end of all the reports under sales category. Let's do a quick recap what we have seen and discussed so far. So we have seen how to track your total sales done to each customers and various customization under sales by customer report. We have seen how we can track the total sales based on specific items, also which products are most best selling and least selling under sales by item report. We have seen the details of sales return details based on the sales order under the sales return history. We were able to identify and segregate the sales done by individual salesperson under sales by salesperson report. And lastly, we were able to track and get information on package history details created from sales order, right? So please note all these reports will be based on transactions created under sent status. Draft or any pending approval status transaction will not be reflected in these reports. See the next set of reports what we are having. So we are having recurring invoice details. So now we'll be talking about all the reports under recurring invoices. We have recurring invoice details, we have payment failure, payment retry, and card expiry. Right. Now begin with recurring invoice details. So let's say in your company you are having customers who purchase from you frequently, and the items and the quantities that they purchase are same every time. So using this report, you will be able to get an understanding about the recurring invoice activity that can help you identify which recurring invoices are performing well, which one needs improvement. You can also use this information to track your recurring invoice revenue and identify the trends. So this report will basically provide you information about the status of the recurring profile that you have created, the customer details, the frequency, whether the profile is created for weekly, monthly, yearly as per your requirement, the last invoice date, when was the last invoice created, the next invoice which is yet to be created in the system, and if the profile has a specific expiry date, those information with the amount it will be displayed. So let's say you are raising invoices in foreign transactions and the base currency as well. So you are dealing with multiple customers across globe and the transactions are created in multi currencies, and you would like to filter the data based on foreign currency and the base currency. So you can go to customize report, go to show and hide columns. Here we have a filter called amount in FCY. FCY is nothing but foreign currency. So the conversion, if you select this report and then run the report, the conversion will happen automatically. If you would like to print this report also, we will have a direct print option button. You can see on the top right corner. You can directly print this particular report as per your requirement, and then just click on print button and it will take a printout directly. Next up, we have 3 reports specifically to give you insights of your card payments which are associated with recurring transactions. We have payment failure report, we have payment retry report, we have card expiry report. So before we get into these reports, I would like to tell you that these reports will only work if the preference for the same is enabled under settings preferences. Let me show you from where. When you go to settings, called recurring invoices. Okay, this recurring invoices will have an option create, charge, push and send invoices. So if this option is enabled, this option you can enable it from the preferences menu, and then if the online gateway is added in the system, you can choose this option and save it. So once this is enabled, those reports will be enabled by default. So as the name suggests, these reports will give you all the information related to the payments which is done for your recurring profiles. So payment failure report will give you, since the card is not added, the values are not displayed over here, but let me explain you what are the information that you can get it from these reports. So the payment failure report, as the name says, it will tell you the profile name for which profile the date, the recurring, the gateway is associated to, the cancel date, and the customer name. So if the payment is getting failed, okay, if the payment is not success, that profile is being listed over here. The payment when it was got failed, the customer name and the associated invoice will be listed over here, and the card last 4 digit of the card which is added, and the failure message why the payment was failed with the amount. Similar way, we have another report that says payment retry. So whether if the payment was retried automatically, for against which invoice it was retried, the profile name and the failure message again, and how many times the system has tried charging the customer, whether it's a retry 1 or retry 2. And the last report, that is card expiry. So this report will give you information about the cards which are added to those recurring profiles. So it will show you the customer name, it will show you the last 4 digit of the card, the expiry date, the profile name, and the next billing date. So these reports will basically give you all the information related to the payments made, payment happened automatically for all the recurring transactions. Having discussed the sales report, the next set of reports we will discuss is purchase and expenses. The purchase and expenses category has various reports like purchase by vendor, purchase by item, receive history, expense details, expense by category, expense by customers, expense by project, expense by employees, and billable expense details. So now let's talk about purchase by vendor. So this report will basically show you the summary of all the purchases that you have made from each supplier during a specific period and shows you what the total purchase amount, the number of items purchased, and the number of expenses and the bills which were created. So let's say if you wish to check which vendor has made more purchases for a particular period, you can have a look at this report. Also, you can compare the report with the previous years or previous period to see your purchase progress from the same vendor. Let's see how we can achieve that. So if I want to see the more purchases made for a specific period, what I can do, I can click on this date period, select the appropriate desired date, and then click on run report. So here the system will list all the supplier names, the number of transactions created against them, and the total the expense value, the total purchase value that you have, that system has tracked it. So here you can again do the sorting by clicking on the amount or the appropriate columns. Based on that, the system will segregate the data for you. So the lowest expense done for a specific supplier is Cheryl Joseph in this case, and the highest expense done for a supplier is Raja Industries. So by this way you'll be able to segregate and track. You can even compare this particular report by going to customize report, and you can just click on compare with previous years. So if I want to see previous year, to which vendor I have done the more purchases from, I can do it like this. Okay, so here you can see based on this customization, as on April to March 23, these are the columns which will be available based on the customization. Next up, we have another report, that is purchase by item. So this report contains the following information. It will show you the summary of all the purchases for specific items in your organizations. Okay, the items which are added under item module, similar to like what we have seen it in the sales by item, that is the item needs to be added under this item module in order to get reflected in this particular report. So those items which are added under item module only will be listed here. You can again sort this particular report based on the lowest and the highest purchases. So you can just click on the quantity purchased and it will show you the least purchased product and the highest purchasing product. Similar way, you can do the comparison. You can customize, do the comparison with your previous periods, run the report. So it will show you the appropriate details. Now let's say if I want to see a purchase for a specific SKU. So here the system displays all the items which are purchased during a specific period. Now I want to track the data only for a specific SKU or a specific item. How do I achieve that? By going to customize, going to add filters. So here I'll be choosing the field as SKU, then selecting the option as is and the SKU number. So once you do that and run the report, the system will by default give you the information for that particular item. Right, so this is how this report will be useful to you. Next we have receive history. Again, this particular report will be only displayed to you if the inventory add-on is enabled. Okay. So now let's consider if you have created a purchase order and would like to track this information about your shipment status, quantity, then this report will be useful. It will show you the item received date, associated purchases, vendor details, and the status and the quantity. You can do the more filtration based on the status. So you can just filter the date range. Okay, and the associated details will be listed over here. Now let's talk about the another set of report under this purchase category, that is expense details. Expense detail is nothing but this will list all the expenses that have been created for a certain period. Ideally everyone would like to check the expenses that are made for each vendor separately. So in such cases you can customize the report, group them by vendor and run the report. So you can just click group by vendor and then run the report. So based on the names which are highlighted are the vendor names. So you can see the employee A, Raja Industries, and the vendor name which are not mentioned. That means under these expense transactions, the vendor name is not selected. So wherever it is not mentioned, that will be displayed as not mentioned. So that is how you can do more expense. You can filter the data for this expense report. So this will list all the transactions which are created as bills, expenses and vendor credits. So you can see the transaction type over here, right? So you can even do more filtration based on the entities. Let's say if I want to see the expense entries which are created through bills, not only expenses directly. So I can select the entity as bill alone and then I can run the report. So it will list out all the transactions which are created, routed through bills, and against which particular vendor it has been associated to. So now let's talk about comparing this particular expense report with your P&L, profit and loss report. So most of the times it will match it. In case if it is not matching, then the only possible reason would be the transactions which you have created are in the draft status, or the expense account which you have taken while creating those expense entries are other than your expense account. Like if you have taken any asset or liability account, those transactions again will create the discrepancies and mismatches. So these are the possible two reasons why it will not match with your P&L. Now moving ahead, we have expense by category report. So the expense category report is will explain the nature of the expenses which are created. So based on why and how you have incurred an expense, you can associate an expense category with it. For example, if you incur an expense for a client during the business lunch, you can create an expense under meals and entertainment category. So that category will come by default automatically here if those expenses created. So as you can see, the category names are nothing but the expense accounts, the total value of it, and the with tax information. If you need any more customization, you can go ahead with it. So you can filter the expenses based on the status, like whether it's unbilled, whether it's an invoiced, whether it's reimbursed, or if it is a non-billable status. We have a bill status also. So if I'm filtering the transaction based on bills, you can select the status of that particular bill and the type of the account. So like I have said, if a expense transaction is created with any of your other than expense account like asset and liability, you can choose appropriate accounts and then run the report. So system will display those transactions. You can see these expense transactions are created with that particular category. Moving ahead, we have another report, that is expenses by customer. So expenses by customer, as the name says, any expenses done on behalf of customers, that means the customer is billable, then this particular report comes into the picture. So it displays the customer name, the total expenses created which are billable to them, the expense amount, and without tax. Others, again, it's nothing but if a transaction is created without associating a customer. So let me show you. When you create any expense entry, there's a field to associate and make a customer billable. So when you select the customer, you have an option to make it as billable. If it is not selected, if the customer name is not selected while creating expense, that is by default taken as a others category. You can get in-depth analysis of those transactions by clicking on the value. So it will display the status of those transaction, whether it's a billable, non-billable, the category, that the category is nothing but the expense account against which it is associated to, the date as on which it is created, and the amount and with tax. You can even add a temporary note if you would like to export this information, and in the export file, if you want a temporary note or an additional information for your company internal reference, you can add it over here. Make use of this feature that says add temporary note, and then go with exporting the data. So while exporting, that information will be listed at the footer. You can even do a filtration based on the branches. So you can make use of the advanced filter. we have multiple filters other than branch. Also, if you want to filter anything like based on customer name, you would like to filter this particular report, you can select this, select the customer name, and then run the report. So these are some additional filtration which are available, right? Moving ahead, we have another report, that is expense by project. So let's say in your company you're having multiple projects, and based on that project you are creating all your sales, expenses, transaction, and would like to track your income and expenses based on that particular product. So this reports will help you with that. So any expense which is associated to any project, so let me show you. I'm having these multiple projects over here. So let me click on one of the project, and against this TCIN I want to create an expense. So I go to new transaction option, click on new create expense. So by default this particular project will be associated while creating this particular expense entry. Okay, so I have saved this. Now when I go to expense by project report, you can see the project name TCIN I have created for 5,000 rupees. So that is how the system will list all the expenses which are created. You can again add any additional fields based on your requirements. So this report will only display the transactions which are associated to projects. It will not show all other expenses. This information I would like to convey this. Next up, we have expenses by employee. So there are many businesses expenses that employees may incur depending on the nature of their work. Some common examples are travel expense, meals and entertainment, office supplies, and etc. So using those expenses, if you'd like to track it against which expense to which employee has done more transactions, you'll be able to filter it. So to get this information, we need to enable this one option which is there under settings. Expenses, and here we have an option that says associate employees to expenses. So once I have enabled this option, while creating any expense transaction, I'll get an option to associate an employee. You can see the field over here. So here you can see the list of employees which are already added. You can add any new employee by going to add employee section. If you are using Zoho Expense also as a secondary application, that's an advanced application to track all your expenses and employee reimbursement, those transactions will also get fetched if an employee is selected over there in this particular report. So what is the advantage of this particular expense by employee report is it helps you to keep track of your employee spending. As you can see, the system displays the employee names: Kuldeep, Rashmi, Sai. The particular employee have done how much expenses. Okay, so that ensures that employees are only spending on company's money on work related activities. It saves time and money by streamlining the reimbursement process, and it also gives you a clear picture of where your company money is going, right? So that is how this report will be useful to you. At last, we have the last report that says billable expense details. So billable expense detail again is nothing but any expense which is created and where the vendor name is selected. So you will be able to track all the expenses where the vendor name is selected and at what amount it is created for. You can do more customization by adding the invoice number field. So it will display you the transaction type and the invoice, if any invoice is associated to it. So with these purchase reports, we can effectively plan our expenses and cut the unnecessary cost to save money for company's growth and efficiently use the reports to plan the same. So now we'll have a Q&A session. You can make use of the chat box and ask all the doubts that you're having. We'll project few questions and I'll try to answer them right away. So Mr. Nitin Gangav have asked how to take a scheduled reports of an inventory summary. So yes, we do have an option. Hope you are able to see my screen. Okay, so we have a scheduled options for various reports. So under inventory summary, we have an option called schedule report. So here when you click on this option, you will have an option to set the frequency. When do you want to get this report, whether it's monthly, daily, weekly, quarterly, start date, as on which date you would like to start this report, and at what time this report should be triggered. You can even add the email recipient to which he wants and any additional recipients you would like to send this report to, and choose the appropriate format and save it. That is how you'll be able to schedule these reports. How to can you show a demo on how we can associate expenses for a particular project? I have shown the demo. I'll show it once again. So if let's say if you have in your system, if you are having projects created under time tracking projects, so against any of the project I would like to associate an expense to it. So you can see the under project section we have multiple projects. So if you would like to associate any expense to any of the project, you can click on the project name, click on new transaction, select the appropriate transaction which you would like to associate. You can click on create expense. Okay, so when you created expense transactions from this option, by default the project name will be associated to it. I have another question, that is Jayadevan sir have asked whether how to generate expenses by employee. Is there any restriction in adding number of employees? No, we don't have any hard limit to add a number of employees. You can have as many as you want and generate the report based on it. Here Mr. Vignesh is asking how to link e-invoicing. I hope you would like to know whether how to enable e-invoicing in Zoho Books. So if that is the case, then you can just go to Zoho Books. Under Zoho Books, you can go to settings, and there we have an option called e-invoicing. So from here you need to do the configuration. Mine is already configured, that is why it's showing like this. Let me show you once again. So when I go to e-invoicing, here the system will give you an option to enable e-invoicing. We can select the turnover, select the start date, enable it. Now here you will have to configure the e-invoicing to the IRP portal. So there is a list of steps that needs to be done. You can read this particular help documentation to understand more. So here Mr. Ashwini Ravi Kumar have answered in which method stock value is calculated in the report. So Zoho Books basically works on perpetual accounting. So the inventory and stock valuation happens on FIFO method, first in first out. Mr. Prakash have asked whether this expense is also seen in P&L account. Yeah, the transactions which are created with the expense accounts will be listed under profit and loss account. All the expense transactions will be listed in your P&L. The only case is expense account should not be asset or liability. It has to be an expense or other expense account. Mamta have asked, can we edit invoice to add TDS amount once it is pushed to e-invoicing portal? For now, no. Once the data is pushed to the IRP portal, it cannot be edited. Mr. Prakash have asked to closing stock details with quantity report. You can get this information in the inventory reports. That is under inventory we have multiple reports. So you can see inventory valuation report. So here it will show you the item names, the stock on hand, the asset value. So hope you are able to see my screen. Under reports we have a report called inventory valuation summary. Here the system will display all the item names, the stock on hand and the asset value. We'll follow up all the unanswered questions through email to everyone. So that's all for this webinar session. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. Hope it was useful to you. Thank you once again.